Hi there guys, I just want to take a look at the upcoming fight between Carlos Molina and Jermall Charlo. Now, Carlos Molina's putting his IBF light middleweight title on the line here against Charlo, who is undefeated. And, Charlo is a really big guy for the weight. So I actually look at him and I wonder how he fights at this weight. I mean, the guy is, I think he's got approximately 3 inches on height and reach over Molina in this fight. Charlo's main weapon is his jab. He's got a really good, strong jab, okay? And he is powerful. He's got quite a high KO ratio. He's got pretty heavy hands. Okay, his opposition haven't been the best opposition, but that's to be expected because he's obviously been working his way up. And he's fought decent guys, he's not fought complete bums. He's fought guys with, type of records you'd expect him to be facing, I would say. And he's been handling them pretty handily. I mean, he's been stopping guys left, right and centre. And he's a big guy. But to me, he looks quite slow. He looks quite cumbersome. In many ways, I think Charlo fights a bit like a heavyweight. In that he's a bigger guy in there, and he doesn't use speed. He uses the range. He uses the jab very well, and then he tries to set you up for those big right hands, and he can throw some good body shots. He, I believe, very much likes the front foot. He likes to be the dominant, powerful force in the ring. He likes to dominate in that sense. And I think that's what's working for him right now, is that power and the fact that he's got that size advantage, and like I said, that excellent rangy jab, which could really work wonders for him in this fight. So the jab could be key, because to me this is a very difficult fight to look at and pick a winner, to be honest, because Molina, on the other hand, he's never been that convincing. His style's never been that convincing to judges. That's been his problem in the past, is that he's had close fights that have gone against him, or fights many believe he won, that have gone against him on the scorecards, because he doesn't really have a standout, showy style that the judges instantly notice and recognise him winning rounds. Don't get me wrong, Molina, I rate him. He's a very good boxer. Okay, he knows a lot of tricks. He is the type of guy who he fights like he's really experienced, and he is experienced, but I think he's the type of guy who didn't really need experience to fight that way. He's just skilled. He's one of these guys who doesn't need to look the part. He just does the part and does the job in the ring. He's got good movement. I think he looks the more energetic of the two guys, actually. I think that may work to his favour in this particular fight, in that Charlo's quite cumbersome and he doesn't look like he's doing a lot all the time, whereas Molina does, compared to him. I think Molina needs to work that upper body movement. He needs to try and be a moving target for that jab. He doesn't want it to keep landing cleanly on him, and he wants to make Charlo really have to work to land that jab cleanly. He wants to slip the jab, and then he probably wants to, as he slips the jab, try and move inside with caution to try and land some shots on Charlo to get a bit closer. The problem with that is that Charlo can follow up with some good power hands. If you get past the jab, he's got his hand cocked. He's ready there with the power hand to try and counter you, or to try and take you as you come inside the jab. It's there ready as a secondary barrier, a secondary defence to try and score on you. And like I said, he's got power, so that's something Molina has to watch out for. He has to be cautious when he's doing that. It was interesting. I watched Charlo. There's a video up on YouTube of Charlo sparring with Erislandy Lara, another guy I've always really rated highly. Before he was even kind of get big. Erislandy Lara is a skillful guy. He's a much smaller guy, as you can see in that video. I would say take a look at it. But the thing is with sparring videos is, of course, they never tell the full story. And in that sparring video, you can see that Charlo's very much, quite often, the front-footed fighter. He's sort of walking down and trying to cut off the ring against Lara, and Lara's just moving around, and he's using his movement. And even Lara didn't look particularly quick in that video, I don't think. But I think it's misleading, because to me, the clever guys in sparring, they don't look to show the world that they can beat this particular guy. They're not looking to particularly necessarily win the fight or that sparring contest. They're looking to be working on a specific aspect of their game, whether it be something they need to work on specifically, or something perhaps leading up to a particular opponent that they're going to come across, or they may be facing in the future, or maybe in their next fight. So to me, I watched that thinking that Lara was looking to sort of like gauge his hone his skills against a tall, rangy, bigger fighter, because as we know, Lara is quite small. Even at the weight, he's still quite a small guy. And I think that Lara's movement, he showed that he was using movement to go around, to use the whole of the ring, his movement around the ring. And then later on, you could see him starting to take a bit more of a front foot and actually looking to sort of say, okay, well, where can I find the openings on this guy? And he did find an opening towards the end. He landed a terrific, I think it was left hand on Charlo. It shows that Charlo's not impenetrable, and I think that Charlo can get caught. I think he is on a bit of the slow side for me. He's quick enough to do damage, but he's not a guy that can't get caught. I think he's a little bit on the slow side, and I think that Molina could try and exploit that and try and get some shots in there, and I think that his skills will allow him to do that. I may be wrong on this, but I'm picking Molina to keep his title. I'm picking Molina to win by decision. The thing is, Molina's lost like 5 times, but he's never been stopped. He got put down against Kirkland late on, but was then disqualified because of his corner jumping in the ring. And Kirkland's got a lot of power. Charlo could start this off cautiously because, as he may know that Molina's a tricky customer, and he may look to just impose his and wear down Molina a little bit, and then impose his size and strength and try and catch Molina late on. That's a possibility. He could hurt Molina later on down the stretch when things start getting a bit tired, and he may be conserving some energy to throw some big power hands later in the fight. Molina has to watch out for that. Okay, I think Molina needs to really pace this fight correctly. He doesn't want to just go out all guns blazing, because there's no real suggestion to say that Molina can hurt Charlo, because Molina doesn't have a lot of power. He really does lack power. That's one of the things against him again. A lot of his fights are going to decision because he lacks that power. He's around 20% KO ratio, and he really relies on skill. He really relies on being able to beat his opponent in boxing, pure boxing, not necessarily taking them out. And so there's nothing to suggest he can hurt Charlo necessarily. If the opportunity comes, go for it. But I think he should really pace this fight and start off a little bit cautiously himself. Try and work his way around the jab. Try and pick openings, because they are there against Charlo. He leaves openings, and I think that Molina has the skills to exploit those openings. It depends what game plan he has. If he chooses the right game plan, starts with a bit of caution, uses his skills and his movement to try and suss out that jab and get inside or lands a couple of shots on an open Charlo, I think that he can win this fight, and I think with his skills he'll do it. But having said that, we saw on the weekend, Lomachenko didn't fight the right fight against Salido. For me, Lomachenko was clearly the more skillful boxer, but Salido fought the correct fight. Lomachenko was too cautious. Okay, he was far too cautious. He had the skills to do the business, but he just didn't do it. So that blew my thoughts out of the water. Again, Stieglitz against Abraham. I hold my hands up. I was wrong about that fight. I gave Abraham next to no chance. But as my good friend Wavjem told me, he had noticed, because he watched their last fight, which I regretfully didn't. He says that he thought Stieglitz would feel that he could bombard Abraham and take him out again by bullying him, and clearly Abraham had done his homework and thought, right, this time I'm going to make amends and I'm not going to fall for the same tactics. And Stieglitz just completely fought the wrong fight. I was under the assumption that Stieglitz was going to use a bit of skill. He was going to actually use his brain. He didn't, and he lost the fight. It all comes down to game plan as well. A fighter can have the skills to pay the bills. I can say, okay, I think he's going to beat this fighter, but it all comes down to whether that fighter implements a correct game plan and then fights, essentially fights the way I think he's going to fight. So if Molina comes out too quick in this fight and exposes himself too early into his game plan, and Charlo sort of like is able to weather a bit of a storm, or is able to nullify that, then the ball's in Charlo's court. He can then look going on into the fight. He can have the advantage on his side. So I think that Molina needs to fight the right fight here. I'm going to go for Molina by decision. Also, Charlo's never been 12 rounds, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that, you know, he's incapable of doing it or that he will struggle down the stretch. And like I said, in fact, I think going further into the fight, it may play into Charlo's hands. But I think that Molina will have enough savvy about him, enough skills about him, to actually do the job here and keep the title. Like I said, it's a close fight to call, and I may be wrong. You know, it's a tough one because, like I say, Molina is this guy who is very skilled, but he's unconvincing at times. And then you've got Charlo, who's the unbeaten rated prospect, who could, you know, we don't really know his actual level. We don't know if he's is he ready for this world title, which is quite a common thing in boxing. So I've gone on enough, guys. I'm going on and on here. Let me know what you guys think about this fight, and enjoy the fights. I hope you've enjoyed watching the video and it's given some food for thought. This is BoxPed. I'm out.